A cold fog and a heavy atmosphere surround the Highgrove estate. There, King Charles is shrinking back, quietly fighting his severe illness amidst the suffocating silence of the royal family. But look across the ocean, where the California sun still dances brilliantly on glasses of sparkling champagne. It is in that glamorous place that a silent agreement, a seemingly sacred promise of honor, has just been ruthlessly torn apart right before the eyes of the public. Betrayal is always bitter, but this stab is also tinged with the ruthless calculation of public relations masters. Less than 1 week after a handshake promising to keep all personal schedules private to protect a fragile core of peace, Meghan Markle delivered the decisive blow. It was not loud like an official statement or press release. Instead, the attack was launched through the whispered rumors of unnamed friends, exclusively in People magazine. A very familiar tactic of using others, where the knife is thrown from the shadows to preserve the pure image of the person behind it. Do you think this media stab in People magazine is the accidental act of gossiping friends, comment 1, or the perfect script written by Meghan from the starting line to play the victim, comment 2? Leave your opinion right below. But ridiculously enough, while the Duchess is busy weaving a helpless victim script in America, back in the United Kingdom, her media-terrified husband is putting on the most dazzling performance possible. The deafening clicks and continuous flashing lights of dozens of lenses at the Time 100 event not only light up the red carpet, but they also strip bare a hollow play. Look closely at the British prince at that moment. There once was a Harry standing in court, tearfully lamenting that he was haunted, deeply psychologically scarred and terrified to the point of depression by the media flashes, things he accused of ruining his life. Yet, in the lavish space of New York that night, that psychological trauma seemed to have vanished without a trace. Instead of shrinking back or dodging like a victim of a hunt, Harry treats the public to an astonishingly masterful performance. He turns at a standard 45-degree angle to the cameras, flashing a bright smile, his white teeth shining under the lights. He even happily praises the paparazzi, joking with the very people he had labeled national enemies just a few days prior. That is not the expression of a person in panic, it is the behavior of a Hollywood star craving attention, an addict to the spotlight enjoying every second of being the center of attention. This contradiction is so ridiculous, it becomes bitter, exposing the truth that the media fear of Harry is just a luxury item, a mask put on when money or pity is needed, and readily taken off when there is a chance to be cheered. Amidst that dazzling performance, a big question is raised in the reception room. Where is Meghan Markle? Why would someone who always craves the red carpet like the Duchess of Sussex be absent from a night gathering all the most powerful figures in the world? Her representatives quickly give a familiar reason: because of dangerous security issues. But the solid walls of the London Royal Palace and American media observers fully understand how the cold mind of Meghan operates. She is not afraid at all. She is simply smart and ruthlessly practical enough to realize that standing next to her husband at that moment would be image suicide. It was the most humiliating week for Harry, as he had just officially become the greatest loser in modern royal history in his lawsuit demanding security rights from the British Home Office. Meghan understands the rules of the American game very well. America loves winners, or at least victims with commercial value. She would never accept sharing a frame to share a bitter defeat with a prince who has been stripped of all privileges but still stubbornly throws tantrums. The absence of Meghan is a silent declaration that when he succeeds, they are a power couple, but when he is pathetic, he must bear that stain alone. Behind the empty smile on the red carpet and the fabricated security reasons lies a highly selfish economic calculation. Let us uncover the bill worth $3 million each year, a massive number for the private security system that the Sussexes have to bear in America. Harry frantically sued the Royal and VIP Executive Committee not because he truly feels unsafe walking the streets of London. How can someone afraid for their security comfortably stroll and joke with paparazzi in New York? The truth is much more naked. Harry wants to reclaim the title of state protected, to legitimize using the tax money of the British people to pay for his royal lifestyle. He wants a Royal Special Forces team accompanying him, not to protect his life in Britain, but to serve as power jewelry for his name, polishing voyages all the way to Colombia or Nigeria. He wants the British people, those who have to tighten their belts amidst an economic crisis, to open their wallets to pay for private flights and heavily armed bodyguards, serving the ambition of building a fake royalty for him and his wife overseas. Harry wants all the privileges of a working prince, yet adamantly refuses to perform any duties to the throne. Harry calculates very well with the purses of taxpayers, but he forgets one thing: the key to entering Buckingham Palace is never for someone carrying the seeds of rebellion. And that night, the oak doors slammed shut. Inside the cold marble walls and the deeply echoing corridors of the palace, the air thickened, so suffocating that one could clearly hear the dry ticking of antique gold-plated clocks. At the center of that chilling silence is King Charles, not only appearing as a deeply authoritative monarch sitting on an eternal throne, but also as an old man carrying a terminal illness, crumbling under the immense weight of the crown and endless family schemes. A brutal internal war tears at his soul every day. Half of him is the anointed king, carrying on his shoulders the century-old mission of the Windsor family, forced to protect the survival and dignity of the monarchy against any threat, even if that rebel shares his own blood. But the other half, hidden deep behind the jewel-encrusted royal cloak, is a frail, lonely, regretful old grandfather burning with a longing for the warmth of family in his fading twilight days. Between exhausting chemical treatments, he longs to hear the giggles of Archie, to see the small figure of Lilibet happily running on the lush green lawns of the Balmoral estate before these eyes close forever. That torment is a cruel psychological sentence. Every labored breath of the old king is a time he is torn between instinctive, fatherly love and cold duty. But in this kingdom, the crown must always win. Supreme duty leaves no room for sentimentality. And from the coldness of that duty, a ruthless but vital checkmate move was launched. The concessionary offer for Harry to stay at Buckingham Palace was withdrawn at the last minute. The heavily and exquisitely carved oak doors slammed shut, the cold iron latches firmly bolted. This is absolutely not a petty retaliation of an angry father towards a rebellious son, but a tactical retreat of constitutional magnitude, calculated extremely meticulously by the most experienced monarchical machine in the world. Try closing your eyes and imagining a disaster scenario that the entire British elite shuddered to think about, Harry being granted the privilege to enter the magnificent Buckingham Palace. He strides out onto the legendary balcony, a place that has witnessed the most sacred moments of British history. From the flag-waving victories of World War II to the national unifying royal kisses, but not to wave to subjects with pride. Instead, he uses the greatest symbol of the institution itself as the perfect backdrop for a tearful speech about injustice and oppression. Just one paparazzi photo secretly taken from afar, capturing the royal victim standing lonely and sorrowful on the Buckingham balcony, that photo would immediately become a weapon of mass media destruction on American soil, bringing in millions of dollars. Letting Harry spend the night at the headquarters of the royal family is no different from personally inviting a Trojan horse into the ancient city of Troy. Unrevealed family secrets, fleeting private conversations, or even the fragile arrangements of the security system could easily be distorted, turned into lucrative material for a next revenge memoir or season 2 of a sensational Netflix series. The British royal family cannot, and will never, gamble with its own survival. By taking away the golden ticket to stay at Buckingham, King Charles swung a decisive sword, cutting off at the root the seeds of a constitutional disaster in the nick of time. However, Amidst that fierce chessboard of power and surrounding schemes, the presence of Queen Camilla is truly the most solid fortress, the final checkpoint protecting the king. If King Charles is still swaying, losing his direction in the storm of father and son affection, Camilla brings a terrifyingly cold head. She does not appear in secret negotiations as a forgiving stepmother or a gentle lady preparing to pour afternoon tea. No warmth is bestowed. Her aura radiates a thorny defensive posture, her sharp, cold, and probing gaze shining straight into the vile calculations, trying to hide behind the disguise of a worried exiled son returning to visit his father. Many years ago, Princess Diana once bitterly called her a Rottweiler, a brave, stubborn hunting dog breed that never lets go of its prey and is absolutely loyal. Now, that very instinct of a Rottweiler is rising stronger and more ruthless than ever to protect the monarch, who is also the man of her life. She sits there, majestic and inviolable, brushing away all the fog of cheap sentimentality to see right through the hearts of the Sussex camp. Camilla understands all too well the cruel survival code of Hollywood. She knows full well that behind the health inquiries soaked in fake father and son love, behind the tears ready to fall prearranged in the press, are actually massive financial demands, a desperate effort to squeeze the last bit of value out of the royal title to pay for security bills and maintain a luxurious lifestyle at the Montecito mansion. The gaze of the Queen thrown at the second son is like a wordless sentence, but sharp as a razor. There is no place here for contracts exploiting family ties. The ruthless determination of Camilla has become the firm anchor, keeping King Charles from being sucked deep into the deadly emotional trap that Harry and Meghan have painstakingly laid out from across the ocean. All calculations to exploit the royal image at its very lair of power have been completely crushed by the extreme vigilance of the royal family. The doors are closed, the latches are bolted, and the cold fog of London once again covers unfulfilled ambitions. Failing to turn the palace into a stage for personal vendettas, the Sussex camp immediately launches Plan B. As soon as the magnificent private jet takes the Sussexes away from the gloomy, foggy skies of London, the giant public relations machine in California is immediately activated at maximum capacity. No need to wait until public opinion has time to settle or the lingering echoes of the trip fade. The pungent smell of ink and orchestration has risen from the glossy pages of People magazine. For audiences who understand the dark arts of American media, this exclusive article absolutely does not bear the shape of an independent journalistic piece or an effort to seek objective truth. It is exactly an internal newsletter stamped by Archewell, a desperate counterattack to regain control of the narrative after a bitter defeat before the slammed doors of Buckingham Palace. We are witnessing a master of public psychological manipulation throwing down their final dirty cards. The first trick, and also the cheapest gimmick in the Hollywood survival manual, is the abuse of anonymous sources. The article on People is riddled with perfectly trimmed quotes from a close friend, a source inside the royal family, or someone close to the family. American audiences are too familiar with this play. When a star does not dare to speak officially for fear of being backfired by legal truths or punishment from mainstream media, they will throw out unnamed friends as shields. The naked truth here is that there are no mysterious friends whispering to journalists. Those are simply drafts sent directly from the desks of the Sussex public relations team, carefully packaged in words that fabricate objectivity. They want to infect the minds of the public with an alternative version of reality, a fantasy space where Harry and Meghan are always kind, pure individuals, constantly being ruthlessly trampled and squeezed dry by the royal system. And then, the peak of sophistry appeared brazenly. The Duchess of Sussex, through the pitiful accounts of sources, decided to stay on the west coast of America because she wanted to step back to let her husband shine. Stop for a beat and think about the absurdity of this statement. We are talking about Meghan Markle, a woman who has never hesitated to cut into the camera lens, who is ready to take over the podium, confidently striding like a head of state on the red carpets in Nigeria or Colombia, and craving the camera flashes to the point of obsession. Since when did such an extreme attention addict suddenly awaken to the virtue of supreme humility? The sharpest answer is that there is absolutely no noble sacrifice here. The so-called stepping back is actually a beautiful silk cover used to hide extreme cowardice. Meghan is sharp enough to read the attitude of the British public. She knows very well that if she steps off at Heathrow Airport, what awaits her is not crowds paid to cheer and praise, but cold stares, the disdainful silence of the British people, and especially the inevitable confrontation with the royal family members, those who have seen right through to the core of her hypocrisy. She is terrified of having to face the harsh reality that in the land of fog, she has permanently lost the power to manipulate public opinion. But the manipulation script does not just revolve around whitewashing the cowardice of Meghan. It also weaves an incredibly sophisticated web of lies about security issues to legitimize the prolonged lawsuit of Harry against the Home Office. Their team constantly peddles about lurking life-threatening risks and a toxic environment, forcing them to change their schedule or make last-minute decisions to cancel trips. However, when flipping through intelligence files and clear evidence from the London Metropolitan Police, Scotland Yard, along with the counterintelligence agency MI5, the security mask immediately crumbles. What is the truth from the experts? There were absolutely no new, specific, or urgent security risks targeting Harry during his presence in Britain. The level of protection was set by the Ravec Committee in an incredibly professional manner based on the most rigorous and realistic intelligence risk assessments in the world, not on the vivid imagination of an individual suffering from delusions of self-importance. The flip-flopping, the persistent complaints, and the last-minute trip cancellation scripts are actually just cheap props in a much larger play. The team of Harry deliberately created a virtual atmosphere of chaos, self-directing imminent dangers, so the press has an excuse to write shocking headlines. They crave for the American public to believe that this miserable prince is being abandoned by his own homeland and family to be torn apart by hungry wolves. This is not only a lie, but also a blatant insult to the British security and intelligence forces, those who silently risk their lives every day to protect the peace of the nation. By deliberately complicating the security issue, nitpicking every detail, Harry is not only trying to regain the privilege of being protected by the tax money of the poor, but is also desperately trying to win an increasingly dirty media war. The entire internal newsletter on People is nothing more than an effort to salvage the last bit of life for the royal victim brand, a commodity that is dropping disastrously in price on the American market, as audiences have begun to yawn endlessly at the never-ending complaints of the ultra-rich. But a terrible play always needs a villain to attract viewers. When King Charles is too weak to be put on the media guillotine, the poisonous spear was redirected towards another target. When a king is struggling to fight against illness, exhausting his strength for draining chemotherapy sessions, and is no longer suitable to act as a shield for the media, the ruthless public relations machine in California was forced to urgently search for a new prey. This time, the poisoned arrow was raised, pulled to the maximum, and aimed straight at the heart of the future monarchy, Prince William. If you are an observant person and understand how the American media machine operates, you will certainly feel a chilling shudder at this eerie coincidence. Not one, but two giant publications, the glamorous People magazine and the famous political newspaper, the New York Times, fired simultaneously on the same day, at the exact same hour. Two newspapers with completely different styles, serving different classes of readers, yet sharing the exact same script, the same stereotyped perspective down to every comma. William is the core reason making this rift impossible to heal. In the fierce journalistic world of the land of the free, Where newsrooms are ready to slaughter each other for exclusive news, this spine-chillingly perfect synchronization is never a coincidence. It is the obvious fingerprint of a directing hand standing in the shadows. That is a meticulously orchestrated smear campaign, launched at the exact golden moment when the Sussexes desperately need a cold-blooded villain so they can continue to fully play the roles of pitiful victims. Let us peel back the deceitful linguistic mask of Hollywood. In those sensational articles, there is a concluding sentence, planted incredibly skillfully, that naive audiences skimming through will easily miss. Representatives of Harry decline to comment. It sounds so noble, full of self-respect and moderation. But for those who have lived long enough in the swamp of the public relations industry, that phrase is the absolute peak of dirty tricks. It is a game of words, a classic stone-throwing and hand-hiding technique that the media calls off the record, unofficial, unrecorded, and off the books. In reality, behind that supposedly gentlemanly refusal to comment are hours of whispering and feeding information from the most trusted aides of the Sussexes to the journalists. They spoon-feed all the documents, directing every train of thought, cleverly painting William as a cruel older brother, a cold conservative who is using the power of the future throne to strangle the voice of his little brother. After having crammed enough poison into the pen tips of the media, the team of Harry leisurely steps back, cloaking themselves in the pure white cape of innocence. We did not say anything. It was the press investigating and concluding on their own, a sophistry so perfect it is brazen. This indirect information leaking trick allows them to stab fatal knives into the Prince of Wales, while their own hands remain flawlessly clean. A peak manipulation script, turning the active attackers into a monument of unjustly wronged silence. But if California is noisy, chaotic, and loud like a broken market, where all family ties can be bargained over with exclusive interviews, then thousands of miles away, Kensington Palace drapes itself in an absolute veil of silence. Imagine the atmosphere inside the ancient palace, where the stone walls have witnessed so many ups and downs of history. The ringing phones from the New York Times and People newsrooms echo continuously without rest. Emails demanding urgent responses pressingly pour in from the other side of the ocean. But all of them crash into the solid fortress wall and plummet into an endless void. Not a single word of justification, not a single press release of rebuttal, not a single internal source deliberately leaked to strike back. In American media culture, silence is often equated with an admission of guilt or an undeniable weakness. But at the heart of the British royal family, the silence of William carries a completely different power and weight. It is not cowardice, timidity, or fear of scandal. On the contrary, it is the ultimate weapon of a monarch, an absolute disdain. The Prince of Wales stands at a pinnacle of pride and duty, where traitors never have the right to reach. He does not bother to bend down to pick up the dirty stones that his younger brother is frantically throwing from the bottom of the mud. William understands this dark game very well. Any response, no matter how sharp or reasonable, is merely an act of adding oxygen to the dying fire of attention-seeking from the Sussexes. Silence is his way of protecting the future throne, protecting a family in need of peace, and also the most ruthless, most thorough way to tell those clinging to royal titles in California that they no longer exist in our world. The more they struggle and scheme, the more that cold, regal silence suffocates the Sussex camp in their own play. Why do they have to scream so desperately? Behind the victim facades, behind the tear-jerking articles, is a dry sound counting down, the ticking of a money-printing machine about to run dry. Throw away all the sentimental words about fractured family ties or the cheesy tears on television talk shows. In Hollywood, when the camera lights go out and the red carpets are rolled up, the only thing that has survival meaning are the cold, lifeless numbers on the balance sheet. This is not a fairy tale about the thirst for freedom or a journey to find oneself. This is a life-and-death gamble with a bank account. The $14 million castle in Montecito, with lush green lawns consuming thousands of gallons of water every day, a private security force on duty 24/7 armed to the teeth, and a lavish lifestyle comparable to Silicon Valley tech billionaires, all are burning money at a terrifying speed. But where will that royal cash flow come from when the well carrying the royal brand is running dry? The cruel reality is that the money-printing machine of the Sussexes is rusting and derailing severely. Look at the lucrative contracts once hailed as the greatest victories in entertainment history when they first set foot in the land of the free. Spotify has completely evaporated into thin air. The $20 million contract closed with a stinging slap from the very executive director of this platform when he publicly called them lazy grifters. Netflix, the streaming giant, is also shaking its head in exhaustion. The glamorous paint has peeled off, and the big shots in Hollywood are tightening their purses as they realize a harsh truth. Apart from selling out family secrets, this couple no longer has any creative scripts capable of retaining an audience. As massive income sources collapse like dominoes, Harry, a man about to turn 40, suddenly realizes he is hovering over an abyss. In his 40s, he does not have a professional degree, has no practical skills to run a business, and has no business resume other than the title of prince, which is fading in value day by day. And weighing heavily on those unsteady shoulders are mountains of massive legal bills. Millions of dollars are being thrown out the window without pity for frivolous, useless lawsuits against the British media and the Home Office, just to satisfy an ego craving to be recognized as the greatest victim. The fees for grade A lawyers in London and Los Angeles are burning up the meager remaining assets. But what makes the atmosphere at the Montecito mansion truly suffocating is not just the current bills, but the haunting ghost of the future. Harry is not so foolish as to not hear the dry ticking of the hourglass running out of its final grains. The monarchy has never been an indefinite charity organization, and there is a look of death hanging over his head, the irreversible rise of the era of William. Harry fully understands that, the very moment the St. Edward crown is placed on the head of his older brother, all financial doors connected to Buckingham Palace or the Duchy of Cornwall will be tightly locked, forever, with an unmovable steel key. William has no soft spot, no guilt of an ailing father, nor the patience of a monarch trying to maintain a fake peace within the family. To the future new king, the younger brother in California is just a toxic investment, a traitor who sold out the honor of the family on national television. When William officially takes full control of the dynasty, there will not be any pity bestowed. Not a single penny. Not a single concession. Not a single security privilege. That is the absolute end. Then, what is the real motivation behind the sudden reconciliation efforts, the rushed flights across the ocean to London to visit the ailing father? Is it sacred, fatherly love? Is it filial piety awakening at the last minute? Do not be so naive. In the eyes of the most sophisticated observers, it is a desperate raid, perfectly disguised. Harry is putting all his effort into the final gamble to salvage the ultimate payday from the king who is struggling with a severe illness. It is an effort to squeeze the last drop from the love and guilt of an old father before the crown is handed over. King Charles is the only remaining life preserver, amidst the storm of debt and massive expenses waiting to sink their fantasy kingdom in America. Every forced smile before the cameras, every deliberate mention of the word family, every article recounting forgiveness planted in magazines are actually just moves in a cold-blooded financial chess game. They need money to maintain the arrogant shell of power in California, and they know very well that the only source of money in this world that does not demand key performance indicators, does not need rating scripts, and is the easiest to manipulate, is the wallet of the lonely old father in London. This gamble, if lost, the price to pay will be the entire existence of the Sussex brand. Ladies and gentlemen, The crown is always patient, but it never forgets. That is the cruel and immortal survival rule of the royal family. A grace year, a golden time for reflection and healing, has long passed, sinking amidst the endless complaints on American soil. The monarchy is not designed to tolerate overgrown children, those forever stuck in a loop of playing the victim, using blood ties as a card for emotional family blackmail. The crown has endured enough backstabbing knives, and now is the time the fortress wall of determination is erected. There is a core message, cold and forged in steel, being sent from the oak-paneled corridors of London. The British taxpayers and the royal family will never be an automated teller machine. They are certainly not a global bodyguard company, born to serve the name polishing voyages or the paranoia about privileges of the Sussex couple. The game of extortion has reached its final act. The treasury doors have slammed shut, and the steel key lies firmly in the hands of the protectors of the future throne. America may love reality television stars, but Buckingham Palace does not. The wind at Buckingham Palace tonight is still blowing, cold but pure, washing away the cheap theatrical plays. And you? When do you think the financial faucet of the Sussexes will officially run dry to the very last drop? Please subscribe to the channel, because this fierce war for the throne has only just begun.